The garage door was open. That's when I knew. My late husband's car was gone. 20 years of his life vanished overnight. My son sold it for a Paris trip with his wife. But one phone call the next morning changed everything. The man on the line said he had Dennis's car. Said there was something my husband wanted me to know. Something he hid before he died. My name is Carol, and this is how my dead husband saved my life and taught my son and his wife a lesson they will never forget. Before we continue, please leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and subscribe to Never Too Old channel. We're creating a community of people who know that our best chapters can happen at any age. Now, back to the story. The garage door was open. That's what I noticed first, standing in my kitchen with coffee going cold in my hands. I looked at it through the window above the sink. Just looked. The door rolled up, the space inside dark even with morning light coming in. Dennis never left it open. 43 years of marriage and he never once left that door open overnight. But Dennis was gone. 8 months now. I set the coffee down, walked to the back door, opened it. Spring air hit me, warm for April. The kind of morning Dennis would have been out there already, bent over that car with a rag in his hand. I crossed the yard. Grass needed mowing. I kept meaning to call someone. The concrete was cold under my feet. I'd come outside in slippers. The oil stain in the center of the garage floor was dark and familiar. 20 years of the same car sitting in the same spot leaves a mark, but the spot was empty now. Just empty. I stood there looking at nothing. The workbench along the back wall was exactly how Dennis left it. His tools hung on the pegboard, each one outlined in black marker so he'd know where it went. His red toolbox sat closed on the bench. His work journal lay open next to it, pages filled with his small, careful handwriting. The car was gone. My chest went tight. I put my hand on the doorframe and breathed, in through the nose, out through the mouth. 43 years as a nurse, and I still used the same techniques I taught patients in the ICU. Breathe, think, act, but I couldn't think past the empty space. I walked to the workbench and picked up the journal. The last entry was dated 3 weeks before Dennis died. His handwriting looked tired, the letters looser than usual. Almost done. 20 years on this beauty. Can't wait to teach Carol to drive her properly. Our retirement road trip starts next summer. I closed the journal, put it back on the bench exactly where it had been. The garage still smelled like him. Motor oil and old leather and that orange hand soap he used. I could see him here, could almost hear the music he played on that old radio. Classic rock. He'd sing along when he thought I wasn't listening. A car engine sounded outside on Oakwood Drive. I turned. Brian's black BMW pulled into my driveway. Leased, not bought. He'd told me that at Christmas like I should be impressed. My son got out of the driver's side. 38 years old, and he still wouldn't look me in the eye when he knew he'd done something wrong. Even from across the yard I could see it. The way his shoulders hunched. The way he shoved his hands in his pockets. The passenger door opened. Vanessa stepped out. She was perfect. Like always. Hair smooth and dark, designer sunglasses, clothes that probably cost more than my grocery bill. She stood beside the car and looked at me standing in the garage. Even with the sunglasses, I could feel her watching. Brian walked toward me, stopped at the edge of the driveway. Mom, I waited. I need to talk to you about something. Where's the car, Brian? His jaw tightened. That's what I need to talk about. Where is it? I sold it. The words landed, but didn't make sense at first, like he'd spoken in another language, and my brain needed time to translate. You what? I sold it. Yesterday. He looked at the empty garage, then at the ground. I needed the money. Vanessa has been planning this Paris trip for months. It's important for her business connections. I couldn't let her down. The tightness in my chest spread. My hands were shaking so I crossed my arms. That was your father's car. It was just sitting there. His voice went defensive, harder. Dad's gone, Mom. You don't even drive it. It was his. Was. Past tense. Brian finally looked at me. His eyes were red around the edges, tired. I got a good price for it too. $15,000. That's fair for a car that old. $15,000. For a car Dennis had spent every weekend working on. For a car he'd restored piece by piece over 20 years. for a car he'd promised would stay in the family. I wanted to yell, wanted to grab my son and shake him until he understood what he'd done, but 43 years in the ICU taught me to keep my voice steady even when everything inside was breaking. When did you take it? Yesterday afternoon. You were at the store. He still had his key, the one from when he lived here, before he moved out, before he met her. I never asked for it back, and Dennis always left the garage unlocked, said he wanted to be able to get in there quick if he thought of something. You should have asked me. Would you have said yes? No, I wouldn't have. Vanessa walked up then. She moved like she owned the driveway, the yard, the whole street, stood next to Brian and put her hand on his arm. Her nails were red and perfect. Carol, we're not discussing this. It's done. The car is sold. We leave for Paris tomorrow. I looked at her. Really looked. She'd been married to my son for 2 years and I still didn't know her. Didn't know where she grew up, or what her parents did, or anything real about her life before Brian. She smiled a lot, but it never reached her eyes. This is between me and my son. I'm his wife. What's between you and him is between all of us. Her voice was pleasant, reasonable, like she was explaining something simple to someone slow. Brian needed that money. The car was sitting unused. It made sense to sell it. It was his father's. His father is dead, she said it flat. Matter of fact, and Brian is trying to build a life. We both are. Surely you understand that. I didn't trust myself to speak, just looked at Brian. He wouldn't meet my eyes again. Vanessa's hand stayed on his arm, possessive. We'll send you photos from Paris, Vanessa said. She smiled. You'd love it there. The architecture, the museums, very romantic. The casual cruelty of that comment, like she didn't know what she was saying, or maybe she did. Brian shifted his weight. We should go. Still need to pack. Yes, Vanessa tugged his arm gently. We have an early flight. They walked back to the BMW. Brian glanced back once, just once, saw me standing there in Dennis's garage with my arms crossed and my slippers on. Then he got in the car. Vanessa's window rolled down. Take care of yourself, Carol. We'll see you when we get back. The BMW backed out of the driveway and drove away. I watched until it turned the corner at the end of Oakwood Drive. Then I was alone. I went back into the garage, stood in the center where the oil stain was. The silence was different without the car, emptier. The morning sun came through the open door and lit up dust in the air. I picked up Dennis's journal again, opened to that last entry, read his words about teaching me to drive, about our retirement road trip, about 20 years of work finally finished. His coffee mug was still on the shelf, stained from years of use, handle worn smooth. I'd washed it after he died, but couldn't bring myself to put it away. Everything was here except the car. His tools, his workbench, his radio, the smell of him in every corner, and the empty space where the Shelby should have been. I closed the journal and held it against my chest. The sun was warmer now. Somewhere down the street a dog barked. A lawnmower started up. Normal sounds. Normal morning. 8 months of being a widow, and I thought I'd cried all the tears there were. But standing in that garage, holding Dennis's journal, looking at the empty space our son had left, I felt them coming again. I locked the garage door, turned off the light, walked back to the house with the journal still in my hands. The empty space where the Shelby should be looked like a wound. The phone rang at 7 in the morning. I'd been awake since 4. I was sitting at the kitchen table with Dennis's journal open in front of me, had been reading the same page over and over, the one where he documented replacing the carburetor, his handwriting so careful, his measurements exact. The phone kept ringing, unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello? Mrs. Bennett? A man's voice, rough around the edges like he'd been crying. This is Tom Graves from Graves Classic Auto. I have your husband's car. I sat up straighter. What? The Shelby. Your son brought it in Wednesday. I need you to come to the dealership, please. Right now if you can. There's something Dennis wanted you to know. My brain tried to make sense of the words. I don't understand. Dennis was my friend. A good friend. His voice cracked. I was at his funeral. I should have spoken to you then, but I couldn't. I'm sorry. Please, Mrs. Bennett, can you come? I remembered him now. Vaguely. A man standing in the back at the funeral home. Gray hair, dark suit. He'd left before I could greet anyone. "Where are you?" He gave me the address, industrial area on the east side of town. I wrote it down on the back of an envelope. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. I got dressed, jeans and a sweater, found my keys, drove across town with my hands tight on the steering wheel. The morning traffic was light. I passed the hospital where I'd worked for 40 years. The parking lot was already full. The industrial area was all concrete and metal buildings. I found Graves' Classic Auto at the end of a long street. The building was clean, modern. Rows of vintage cars sat in the front lot behind a chain-link fence, all gleaming in the early sun. A man stood outside the main entrance. Gray hair, maybe 65, jeans and a button-down shirt. He was watching for me. I parked and got out. He walked toward me. His eyes were red. "Mrs. Bennett, thank you for coming. You're Tom." "Yes." He put out his hand. I shook it. His grip was firm but his hand was shaking. "I'm Tom Graves. Your husband saved my life 25 years ago." I waited. He looked at the ground, took a breath. "I needed a business loan. Had a dream of opening this place. No bank would touch me. Bad credit. No collateral. Just a dream and a lot of nerve." He looked up. "Dennis co-signed for me. Risked his own credit and savings. For a stranger. I paid back every penny but the debt went deeper than money. He never told me. He wouldn't have. That's who Dennis was." Tom wiped his eyes. "This dealership exists because of him. I've been successful, built a good life. All because your husband believed in me when no one else did. When your son brought that Shelby in Wednesday, I knew it the second I saw it." Tom's voice went rough. "Dennis talked about that car every time we ran into each other. Car shows, auctions. He'd show me pictures on his phone. Tell me about the progress. He was so proud of it. Brian said he sold it." "He did. To me." Tom looked sick. "Your son had no idea what he was selling." I asked him if he knew the value. He said 15,000 sounded fair. My stomach dropped. "What's it really worth?" Tom met my eyes. "Around $180,000. It's a documented 1967 Shelby GT 500. One of 2,048 ever made. Dennis restored it to museum quality." The number didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. 180,000. "Yes, ma'am. Brian sold it for 15. "Yes." I sat down on the curb. Just sat. Tom sat next to me. We stayed like that for a minute, neither of us talking. "I bought it from him," Tom said finally. "Paid him the 15,000 because he was desperate. Said something about a Paris trip with his wife. But Mrs. Bennett, that car was never mine to keep." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Dennis made me promise, 2 years ago." Tom stood, held out his hand to help me up. "Come inside. There's something you need to see." He led me through the building to the garage. The space was huge, white floors, bright lights overhead. 3 cars sat in a row under covers. Tom stopped at the last one, pulled the cover back. The Shelby sat there gleaming, burgundy paint perfect, chrome shining. I walked toward it slowly, put my hand on the hood. The metal was cool and smooth. I could feel Dennis in every line. I opened the driver's door, sat in the leather seat. It smelled like the garage at home. The steering wheel was worn where his hands had gripped it. Tom leaned against the doorframe. 2 years ago, Dennis asked me to help him install something, a hidden compartment. I looked up. "Why?" He said if anything ever happened to him, I needed to make sure you knew about it. Made me swear. Tom gestured to the dashboard. Behind the radio. I didn't look inside. He said this was for you and only you. My heart was pounding. Tom showed me how to release the panel. Press here, pull there. The radio face came away and behind it was a space, dark and hidden. Tom stepped back, walked out of the garage, left me alone. I reached into the compartment. My hand touched paper. I pulled out a manila folder, thick and heavy. Under it was a sealed envelope. My name on the front in Dennis's handwriting, and at the bottom, a small wooden box with a key inside. I opened the envelope first. Dennis's handwriting filled the page. Dated 2 months before he died. "Carol, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I didn't tell you while I was alive. You would have wanted to handle it together and I know that. But I needed to protect you from this until I had proof. I've been investigating Vanessa for 18 months. She's not who she says she is. Her real name is Vanessa Cortland. She's done this before, twice that I've found so far. In this folder is everything I've gathered. Photos, documents, contact information for her previous victims. Their stories are the same. She targets men with aging parents and family assets. She's going to target our house, Carol. That's her pattern. She'll convince Brian that you're declining, that you need care, that the house should be sold. Then she'll disappear with the money. I confronted her once, carefully, watching her reaction. She's very good at what she does. Brian doesn't see it. He won't believe me without ironclad proof, and I don't have it yet. The key in this box is for our safe deposit box at First National. Box 447. Inside are stock certificates I bought in 1994 as a favor to a patient. Check the current value. You're taken care of financially. Tom knows to call you if anything happens to this car. He's a good man. Trust him. Protect yourself. Protect our son. He's a victim in this too. I love you. I'm still protecting you. Dennis, I read it twice, my hands shaking. Dennis knew. He knew about Vanessa, spent 18 months investigating her, died before he could finish. I opened the manila folder. Inside were photos. Vanessa at a wedding with a different man. Older, gray hair. Another photo. Different wedding. Different man. Marriage certificates. Copies. Vanessa Cortland married Stanley Wright, Phoenix, Arizona, June 2019. Vanessa Cortland married George Murphy, Tampa, Florida, March 2021. Newspaper clippings. Local man reports elderly mother's life savings stolen by daughter-in-law. Another one. Family business sold in suspected fraud case. Pages of Dennis's handwriting. Notes about Vanessa's behavior. Questions she'd asked about our house, about my health, about our assets, dates and times. At the back, contact information, phone numbers. Stanley Wright, Phoenix. George Murphy, Tampa. Dennis's final note at the bottom. Need more concrete proof before telling Brian. He won't believe me without it. She's too skilled. If you're reading this and I'm gone, please finish what I started. Protect our son. I closed the folder, held it against my chest. 8 months of me thinking I knew everything about our life together. 8 months of missing him and grieving him. He'd carried this alone. Tears came then. Not quiet ones, deep sobs that shook my whole body. I sat in Dennis's car, holding his investigation file, and cried for everything he'd tried to do. Tom came back after a few minutes, stood in the doorway, didn't say anything, just waited. I wiped my face, got out of the car, looked at him. He was protecting me even after he died. Tom nodded. That's who Dennis was. I need to call these men, Stanley and George. I need to know what happened to them. You can use my office. Take all the time you need. I looked at the Shelby, at the car Dennis spent 20 years building, at the secret compartment he'd installed with Tom, at the investigation he'd left for me to finish. She's not going to get away with this. No, Tom said, she's not. Stanley Wright answered on the third ring. His voice sounded tired, like he'd been expecting this call for years. I was in Tom's office, the door closed. Phone on speaker so Tom could witness. My hands were shaking as I dialed. Hello? Mr. Wright? My name is Carol Bennett. I'm calling because my son is married to a woman named Vanessa Cortland. Long silence on the other end. Then a heavy sigh. I wondered when this call would come. I gripped the edge of Tom's desk. Can you tell me what happened? Stanley was 58 years old. He told his story slowly, each word careful, like he'd practiced what to say if someone ever asked. He met Vanessa in the spring of 2019, community center where his mother volunteered. Vanessa was helping organize events. Charming, attentive. Started talking, she seemed genuinely interested in him. His wife had died 3 years before. He was lonely. They dated. She was patient, understanding, made him feel seen again. Married 6 months later. His mother had concerns. Said something felt off. Stanley dismissed it. Thought she was being overprotective. After the wedding, Vanessa started with small comments. Your mother seems to be slowing down. Have you noticed? She forgot my name yesterday. Is that normal? I'm worried about her driving. What if something happens? Stanley started noticing things he hadn't before. Normal aging suddenly looked like decline. Vanessa would find articles about dementia, leave them where Stanley would see them. Articles about elderly falls, injury risks. Over months, she built a case that his mother wasn't safe. Then she found a memory care facility. The best in the state. She deserves the best. $20,000 a month. Only way to afford it was to sell his mother's house. Stanley convinced his mother it was for her safety. Sold the house she'd lived in for 42 years. $280,000. Money went into a joint account with Vanessa. His mother moved to the facility a few months after the wedding. 2 weeks later, Vanessa disappeared. Cleaned out the account. Every penny. Left no forwarding address. Changed her phone number. Stanley tried to track her. Filed police reports. But the money was in a joint account. Technically legal. His mother died 6 months later. Stanley's voice cracked. She kept asking when she could go home. I kept telling her soon, but there was no home anymore. And no money to get her one. I closed my eyes. I'm sorry. Mom was fine, Mrs. Bennett. A little forgetful, but fine. She didn't need that place. She needed her home. He paused. Whatever Vanessa is telling your son about you, don't believe it. Document everything. She'll start small. Little comments about you forgetting things, being tired. Then she'll escalate. Thank you for telling me. Stop her, Stanley said. Please, don't let her do to another family what she did to mine. I hung up. Sat there staring at the phone. Tom brought me water. I drank it. Dialed the second number. George Murphy answered immediately. George Murphy. I introduced myself. Same opening. He sighed. Vanessa Cortland. Yeah. I've been waiting for someone to call. George was 61. His story was different, but the pattern was the same. Met Vanessa at his father's funeral in early 2021. She was there supporting a friend, she said. Found George afterward. Expressed condolences. She understood grief. Said she'd lost someone too. They talked for hours. She helped him through the darkest time. Started dating a month later. His friends said it was too soon. He didn't care. Vanessa made the grief bearable. Married 8 months later. His father had owned a small auto repair shop for 40 years. George inherited it but didn't want to run it. Too many memories. Vanessa suggested selling. It's too much stress. Sell it. We'll take the money, travel, heal together, start fresh. Made sense to George at the time. Sold the shop for $195,000. Money went into a joint account. 3 days after the check cleared, Vanessa was gone. Completely vanished. George tracked her through credit card records to Costa Rica. By the time he got there, the money was gone. Laundered through multiple accounts. Impossible to recover. She targets men with aging parents and family assets, George said. That's her specialty. She researches them first, knows everything before she even introduces herself. He paused. Does your son have access to your house, your finances? Not yet, but she's been setting the stage. Then you have time. Stop her before she gets him to sign anything. After I hung up, Tom and I sat in silence. Dennis suspected all of this, Tom said finally. He came to me 6 months before he died, asked me to help him, said he had a buddy, a private investigator, Peter Coleman. They were working together. Why didn't Dennis tell me? He said he needed ironclad proof. Said Brian was so in love, he'd never believe it otherwise. Tom pulled out a business card from his desk drawer. Peter's been waiting. Call him. I took the card. Peter Coleman, Private Investigations. A local number. First I need to go to the bank. First National was across town. I drove there with Dennis's investigation file on the passenger seat. The small wooden box with the key in my purse. The bank was busy. Friday afternoon. People cashing checks, making deposits. Normal business. I asked for access to the safe deposit boxes. The manager, a woman in her 50s, led me to the vault. Box 447. The key fit perfectly. Inside was a single envelope. I opened it. Stock certificates in a protective sleeve. Documentation. A letter from Dennis. Carol, I bought this stock as a favor to a patient in '94. His son was starting a tech company and needed investors. I gave him $5,000, never expecting anything. The patient died the next year, and I honestly forgot about these certificates. Found them last month while organizing files. looked up the company, and nearly fell over. This is worth more than we ever saved. This is for you, for our future, for security. If you're reading this from the safe deposit box, something happened to me. Sell these when you're ready. Live well, travel, stay independent. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. You're taken care of. Dennis. I took the certificates to the bank manager. Can you tell me what these are worth? She researched on her computer. Her eyes widened. Mrs. Bennett, TechCore Solutions went public last year. These shares are currently valued at approximately $342,000. I sat down. Just sat. The manager brought me water. Are you all right? My husband bought these? She pulled up records. Purchased May 94 for $5,000. The company remained private for 30 years, then went public. Stock price has been climbing. $342,000. Dennis left me financial security I never knew existed. I had resources now. Power. Options. I could fight Vanessa on equal footing. Saturday morning I met Peter Coleman at a coffee shop near the hospital. Tom had called him, set it up. Peter was 55, graying, methodical looking. Former detective. He had folders with him, sat across from me in the booth. Dennis was my friend. When I heard about his death, I wondered if Vanessa would make her move. You kept investigating. Dennis made me promise not to contact you directly unless Vanessa acted against you. He didn't want to alarm you with unproven suspicions. Peter opened his folder, but I kept watching. He showed me printouts, digital footprint from the last 3 months. Vanessa active on caregiver forums under a fake name. Posts asking how to convince resistant elderly people they need help. Questions about assisted living facilities, memory care costs, property browsing history, Costa Rica real estate, financial investigation, credit cards in Brian's name, 3 cards, $32,000 total debt, charges for designer clothes, expensive restaurants, luxury hotel in Paris. Brian's salary as an office manager is $65,000 a year, Peter said. Not enough to support this lifestyle. She's living on borrowed money. Money he doesn't even know he owes yet. Peter laid out a projected timeline. Based on previous victims. Phase 1, Paris trip. Build the dream. Make Brian feel inadequate. Phase 2, next 2 or 3 months. She'll start concerns about you. Suggest you're declining. Phase 3, 4 to 6 months. Build the case for assisted living. Phase 4, 6 to 8 months. Convince Brian to sell your house. My house is paid off. Worth $320,000. Exactly. Her total take would be over $350,000. Peter closed the folder. She's in setup phase now. When they get back from Paris, she'll start the campaign in earnest. Can the police stop her? Not yet. She hasn't committed a crime in this state. The previous scams were in Arizona and Florida. Until she actually takes money or commits fraud here, police can't act. So we wait for her to hurt us. We build the case now. Document everything. When she makes her move, we're ready. Peter leaned forward. And Brian has to see the truth himself. If you just tell him, she'll convince him you're paranoid. He has to discover it. I understood. Brian wouldn't believe me without proof he found himself. That evening I sat at my kitchen table, made a list of everything I'd noticed from Vanessa over 2 years. 2 months ago, Brian asking where I keep the house deed. 6 weeks ago, Vanessa taking photos of every room during a visit. 1 month ago, Brian asking if I'd forgotten about lunch plans we never made. 3 weeks ago, Vanessa commenting how tired I seemed. 2 weeks ago, a brochure for Sunset Hills Senior Living falling from Vanessa's purse. The pattern was there. Been building for months. Vanessa was creating a narrative that I was declining, preparing Brian to believe his mother needed help. I thought about the stock certificates, about why Dennis kept them in the bank, but hid the investigation file in the car. The answer was obvious. The bank was fireproof, secure, the safest place for something valuable. But the car was Dennis's private space. Vanessa never went in the garage, never showed interest in his tools or his work. She stayed in the house. The car was where Dennis could hide something he didn't want her to find. He thought of everything. I closed my notebook. Outside, the sun was setting. Spring evening, warm and quiet. Dennis protected me in every way possible. Left me money. Left me evidence. Left me people who would help. Now I had to protect Brian. They came back from Paris on a Tuesday, both tanned. Brian looked tired despite the vacation, stress lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. I'd invited them for dinner. Played the part perfectly. Made pot roast, Dennis's favorite. Brian's childhood favorite too. They arrived at 6. Vanessa in clothes I'd never seen before. Silk blouse, designer jeans, expensive bag. I hugged Brian at the door. He held on a second longer than usual. Vanessa's hug was quick, performative. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd raised Brian, the same chairs Dennis refinished 20 years ago. Vanessa controlled the conversation from the first minute. Paris was beautiful. The hotel in the Marais was stunning. They had lunch near the Louvre, dinner at a restaurant I couldn't pronounce. She painted a picture of the life they deserved, the life they should have. It was wonderful, Vanessa said, but it made me realize how much we're missing out on. Brian works so hard, and we have so little to show for it. She looked at me when she said it, the meaning clear. I kept my face neutral, past the potatoes. Brian jumped in. Mom, you should think about traveling too, seeing things. Maybe someday. Vanessa leaned forward. Carol, this house is really too big for one person. Have you thought about downsizing? Maybe something more manageable? There it was, the first direct move. I'm managing fine. This is my home. Of course. Vanessa's smile was pleasant, reasonable. We just care about your safety. The stairs, the yard work. It's a lot for someone your age. Brian nodded along. We worry about you here alone, Mom. I noticed he said we, not I. Vanessa's words coming out of his mouth. I appreciate the concern, but I'm fine. Vanessa let it drop, but I saw the calculation in her eyes. Seeds planted. She'd push harder next time. After dinner, we moved to the living room. Coffee and the apple pie I'd made. Vanessa excused herself. Bathroom? Down the hall? She was gone 10 minutes. I waited 5, then excused myself, found her upstairs, near Dennis's old office. The bathroom door was open and empty behind her. She jumped when she saw me. Oh, I got turned around. This house has so many rooms. The bathroom is downstairs, where it's always been. She laughed, touched my arm. Of course, silly me. Too much wine with dinner. I led her back downstairs, said nothing more. They left an hour later. Vanessa all smiles. Take care of yourself, Carol. We'll visit again soon. Brian hugged me goodbye. Love you, Mom. I watched them drive away, then went straight to my notebook. Wrote down every detail while it was fresh. Wednesday morning I called Brian. I need to talk to you about something. Can you come by? Just you. What's it about? Your father. Something I found in his things. Silence on the other end. Vanessa and I don't keep secrets, Mom. This is between you and me. Please, Brian. Long pause. Okay. This afternoon, I have to tell Vanessa where I'm going. That's fine. He arrived at 3, alone like he'd promised, but he looked nervous getting out of the car. I had coffee ready, Dennis's investigation file on the kitchen table. Brian saw it and his shoulders went tight. Mom, if this is about the car again, sit down, please. He sat, arms crossed, defensive before I'd even started. I took a breath, used my ICU nurse voice. Calm, authoritative, factual. Before I show you anything, I need you to listen. Really listen. Can you do that? This feels like an ambush. It's protection. I showed him Dennis's letter first, put it in his hands. Brian read it, color draining from his face. Dad was investigating Vanessa for 18 months before he died. His reaction was instant, anger, denial. Dad never liked her. He was paranoid about everything. This is ridiculous. I stayed calm. Look at the evidence. Spread the photos on the table. Vanessa at 2 different weddings with 2 different men. The marriage certificates. Vanessa Cortland married Stanley Wright. Vanessa Cortland married George Murphy. Brian stared at them. This could be anyone. Someone with the same name. Call them. Ask them about their wives. I handed him the paper. Phone numbers written in Dennis's careful handwriting. Stanley Wright, Phoenix. George Murphy, Tampa. You want me to call random strangers? They're not random. They were married to your wife. Before you? Brian started pacing. This is insane. Vanessa wouldn't. She loves me. Then prove me wrong. Call them. Prove your father wrong. He grabbed the paper, crumpled it in his fist. I'm not doing this. Headed for the door. Brian, please. He turned. Why are you doing this? Can't you just let me be happy? My voice broke. Because your father died trying to protect you, and I'm not going to let his last months be for nothing. Brian slammed the door behind him. I watched him drive away. Didn't know if he'd call those numbers or go straight to Vanessa. Either way, the choice was his now. The waiting was the worst part. I sat at the kitchen table, couldn't eat, couldn't focus on anything. Peter called at 8 to check in. How did it go? He was angry. I don't know what he'll do. Give him time. The truth has to sink in. But time felt like it was running out. At midnight the phone rang. Brian's name on the screen. Brian? His voice was wrecked, raw. I called them, Mom. I called them both. He was crying. What did they say? Everything. Stanley's mother. George's father's shop. It's the same. Exactly the same story. My heart broke for him. I'm so sorry. I went home after I left your house. I was so angry. His voice shook. But I kept thinking about Dad, about those marriage certificates. So I decided to test her. Just ask simple questions. What happened? I asked where she grew up, what her maiden name was. Tell me about your family. He took a shaky breath. Her answers were different. Not just a little different. Completely different from things she told me before. Different town, different college, different everything. What did you do? I pushed. Asked about the credit cards Peter found. The ones in my name I didn't know about. Brian's voice went flat. Her whole face changed. Mom. Like a mask came off. She said they were business investments. I wouldn't understand. So I asked what business. Asked her to show me. She said she didn't have to prove anything to me. That I should trust my wife. I kept pushing. Said I wanted to see the statements. They're in my name. She packed a bag right then. No more pretending. Said I was weak. Said I was just like what Dad said. Just like all of them. His voice broke. She walked out. Just got in her car and left. I've been calling her phone, she won't answer. Stay there. I'm calling Peter Coleman. I hung up and dialed Peter immediately. He answered on the first ring. I'm already tracking her through the credit cards. She checked into the airport Marriott an hour ago. She's leaving. Made multiple cash withdrawals over the last 2 hours. Got about 12,000 total. And she just booked a flight. He paused. Mexico City, 6 a.m. departure, one way. My stomach dropped. She's running. Yes, but I found something else. Vanessa Cortland is a stolen identity. Real Vanessa Cortland died in a car accident in 2018. This woman's real name is Linda Marsh. She's wanted for fraud in 2 other states under different names. Can the police stop her? I've been in contact with detectives in Arizona and Florida. They'll issue a warrant. If we move now, we can get her at the airport before she boards. What do you need? Brian's cooperation. His statement about the credit card fraud. Can he do that? Yes. I'll make sure of it. At 3 in the morning we met at my house. Peter, Brian, and me. Brian looked destroyed. Red eyes. Hadn't slept. He sat at the kitchen table while Peter laid out the situation. Vanessa is leaving on a 6 a.m. flight. Police are ready to arrest her on outstanding warrants. But we need your statement about the forged credit cards. This means it gets public, Peter said. You'll have to testify. Are you ready for that? Brian looked at me. What would Dad do? Your father spent his last months building a case against her. He died before he could finish it. He'd want you to stop her. Not for revenge, so she doesn't do this to someone else. Brian was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. Call the police. Let's go to the airport. We got in Peter's car. Drove through empty streets. 4 in the morning and the city was dark except for streetlights. Brian sat in the back seat, staring at nothing. I reached back, took his hand. He held on tight. The airport was just waking up when we arrived. Coffee shops opening, fluorescent lights harsh overhead, business travelers pulling luggage, looking tired. We stood behind a column near security. Peter positioned us where we could see but stay back. Police were already there. 2 detectives in plain clothes near the checkpoint. Brian hadn't spoken since we got in the car, just stared ahead. I stayed close to him. 5:30. The security line started filling. Then Vanessa appeared. 2 large suitcases, designer coat, sunglasses despite the early hour, hair perfect. She looked like someone going on vacation, calm, confident, phone in one hand, boarding pass in the other. She got in the security line, pulled her luggage forward. The detectives moved. "Ma'am, we need to speak with you." Vanessa turned, saw them. For just a second her face changed. Then she smiled. "Is there a problem, officers?" The detective showed his badge. "We have a warrant for your arrest. Linda Marsh." Vanessa's smile froze. "I don't know who that is. My name is Vanessa Bennett." "Ma'am, please step aside." Vanessa looked around, calculating, saw the other detective blocking the exit. She ran, dropped her luggage, kicked off her heels, ran in stockings across the polished floor. Airport security caught her before she made it 20 feet, tackled her at the departure board. She fought, kicking, screaming, "Get off me! I haven't done anything." People stopped, watched, phones out. Police handcuffed her right there on the floor, read her rights while she thrashed. A detective opened her abandoned luggage, right there at the security checkpoint. Inside the first suitcase were clothes, toiletries, normal travel items. Inside the second were stacks of cash. Rubber banded, $48,000, the detective would tell us later. A passport with her photo, but different name. Linda Brennan. Documents, bank account numbers, external hard drive. The detective held up the passport. "Want to explain this?" Vanessa spat at him. They lifted her to her feet. She was still fighting when she saw us. Saw Brian standing 30 feet away, me beside him. She went completely still, then her face transformed. Pure rage. "You!" She lunged toward him. Police held her back. "You did this!" Brian flinched. "You're pathetic," Vanessa screamed. "Weak, stupid, just like the others. You really thought someone like me would want you. You're nothing. Nothing." I stepped in front of Brian. "Not much. Just enough." Vanessa turned on me. "And you, interfering old woman. This was mine. My score. 3 years I spent on this. You should have minded your own business and died already." Her voice echoed through the terminal. People staring, recording. I didn't react, just stood there. Kept my hand on Brian's arm. Police dragged Vanessa away. She was still screaming threats, her voice fading as they took her through security doors. Then she was gone. Brian stood frozen, shaking. "Let's go home," I said. 2 weeks later we were at the police station giving formal statements. Detective Ramirez explained what they'd found. Vanessa's real name was Linda Marsh. Born in Ohio, started running cons at 20. Small scale at first, graduated to identity theft and elder fraud. Vanessa Cortland was a stolen identity. Real Vanessa Cortland died in a car accident. Linda stole her identity and used it for the last 6 years. 5 previous victims they'd found so far, 2 before Stanley, the pattern going back 8 years. Charges filed in 3 states, Arizona, Florida, and here: identity theft, fraud, theft by deception, forgery. The prosecutor expected a plea deal, 12 to 15 years federal prison. Stanley Wright and George Murphy's cases were reopened with new evidence. They might recover some funds through civil suits. Brian's credit card debt was mostly forgiven. Fraud claims approved. 1 month later, Brian showed up at my door with 2 suitcases. "Can I stay here? Just for a while?" "Of course." He took his old room, same room from high school. Posters still on the walls, football trophies on the shelf. Divorce was granted. Annulment, actually. Marriage never legally valid. Vanessa married under a stolen identity. Brian started therapy. Twice a week, Tuesday and Thursday evenings. Some days he was okay. Made breakfast, helped around the house, smiled occasionally. Some days he barely spoke, stayed in his room, came out only for meals. I didn't push, just kept the space safe, made his favorite foods, left lights on, kept coffee ready. Years as a nurse taught me about healing. It's not linear. It's messy, it takes time. 2 months after the airport, the prosecutor called. Vanessa took the plea deal, 12 years, federal prison. I told Brian over dinner. He just nodded, didn't say anything. That Saturday I found him in the garage. He was sitting on Dennis's old work stool, holding the work journal, tears running down his face. I stood in the doorway, waited. I found this on the workbench. His voice was thick. Started reading. He opened to a page from years ago. Dennis's handwriting filled it. Taught Brian to change the oil today. He's 12, old enough to learn. His hands are still small but careful. He listened to every word, so proud of him. Brian's hands shook, holding the page. Another entry from later. Brian came by to help with the engine rebuild. We worked all afternoon, barely talked, didn't need to. These are the days I'll remember. I barely remember this, Brian said. Working on the car with him. I was so young. I sat on the workbench beside him. He loved those days, talked about them all the time. I sold his car. Brian's voice broke. The car he spent 20 years on. For $15,000, for a trip to impress a woman who was planning to destroy our family. You didn't know. I should have known. Dad tried to warn me. Those last few months he kept asking about Vanessa, about our plans, about money. I thought he was being controlling. He wiped his eyes. Last conversation I had with him, we argued about her. I told him to back off, to let me live my life. He died a week later. I never apologized. My throat was tight. He knew you loved him. Brian shook his head. How could he? I chose her over him, over you, over everything he taught me. I pulled out the letter Dennis had left in the car, the one about needing proof before telling Brian. I'd been carrying it with me, waiting for the right moment. Read this. Brian took it, read Dennis's words about not wanting to break his heart without ironclad proof, about loving him, about Brian being a victim too. He understood, I said. He knew Vanessa was good at what she did. He didn't blame you. Brian broke down completely, deep sobs that shook his whole body. I held him. All those years being a mother, holding my son through every pain. This one cut the deepest. We sat in the garage for a long time, surrounded by Dennis's tools, his workbench, his radio, the smell of motor oil and old leather. Eventually Brian's tears stopped. He wiped his face with his sleeve. I wish the car was still here. His voice was raw. I'd learn everything about it, the way Dad wanted me to. I didn't say anything, just squeezed his shoulder. He closed the journal carefully, put it back on the workbench exactly where Dennis had left it. We walked back to the house, evening coming on, spring turning to summer, the air warm and thick. Inside, I made dinner. Brian set the table without being asked. The house felt different, not empty anymore, not quite whole yet either, but healing, slowly. I paid off Brian's remaining debt the week after Vanessa was sentenced. $5,000. What the fraud claims didn't cover, wrote the check and didn't mention it again. The stock certificates from Dennis gave me choices I never expected. $342,000, more money than we'd saved in our entire marriage. I thought about what to do with it. Stanley Wright, his mother dying heartbroken in a memory care facility she never needed. George Murphy, his father's shop sold, 40 years of work gone. I sent them each a check for $10,000, attached a note, for your mother's memory, from someone who understands. Carol Bennett, for Stanley. Similar words for George. For myself, I decided to stay in the house. Maybe travel a little, small trips, nothing fancy. Stay independent like Dennis wanted. 2 months after the airport, on a Saturday morning, I heard an engine rumble outside. Deep, powerful, familiar. I looked out the kitchen window. The Shelby sat in my driveway. Burgundy paint gleaming in the sun. Tom Graves behind the wheel. My chest went tight. Brian was upstairs. I heard his door open, his footsteps on the stairs. He'd heard it too. We both walked outside. Stood on the front porch. Tom got out of the car, smiled when he saw our faces, bringing her home where she belongs. Brian stared at the car, couldn't move, couldn't speak. Tom walked toward us, held out the keys to me. This was never mine, Mrs. Bennett. Dennis built it for you. I tried to find words. Tom, you paid Brian $15,000. I know. Tom shook his head. But this car is worth more than money. Dennis would want you to have it. Want Brian to learn it. That's what matters. Brian's voice came out rough. I sold it. I threw it away. Tom looked at him. You were a victim too. Your dad knew that. That's why he built the case, to protect you. Tom handed me the keys. Dennis told me once that this car was never really his. It was always meant for his family, for the people he loved. He gestured to the garage. You want help backing her in? We opened the garage door together. Tom backed the Shelby into its spot, the same spot it had left months ago, the oil stain on the concrete still there. The engine shut off. Silence settled. Then the garage smelled like it should again. Motor oil. Old leather. Dennis. Tom got out, stood looking at the car for a moment. He'd be proud of what you did, he said to me. Stopping her. Protecting your son. He looked at Brian. And he'd be proud you came back. That you're healing. Tom left after coffee, hugged us both. Brian and I stood in the garage after he drove away. The Shelby between us. I can't believe it's back, Brian said. Neither can I. He touched the hood, ran his hand over the smooth paint. I don't deserve this. Dennis thought you did. That's enough. 3 months later, on a Sunday morning, we started. Brian brought Dennis's work journal to the garage. I brought coffee. We opened the hood, stood looking at the engine Dennis had rebuilt piece by piece. I don't know where to start, Brian said. I opened the journal, found the page marked Teaching Brian. Dennis's handwriting clear and careful. Start with the oil, I read. Check it first, every time. Before you drive her, know she's ready. Brian found the dipstick, pulled it, checked the level like the journal showed. His hands were steadier now, 3 months of therapy showing. We spent the morning going through the car together, checking fluids, examining filters, testing systems. Physical, methodical work, following Dennis's notes step by step. Brian's confidence grew as the hours passed. I saw Dennis in his movements, the careful attention, the gentle touch with tools. By afternoon, Brian was smiling, really smiling. I forgot how much I loved this, he said. Being in the garage, working with my hands. Your father loved these days with you. I remember more now. Little things, the way he'd explain everything twice to make sure I understood, the way he'd let me try even when I made mistakes. He closed the hood carefully. I'm going to take care of this car, the way he wanted. We'll take care of it, I said, together. 4 months after Tom brought the car back, I decided it was time. Saturday morning, spring turning to summer, I stood in the garage with the keys in my hand. Brian came out. You ready? I think so. We got in. Brian passenger seat, me behind the wheel. The leather seat was cool under me. The steering wheel worn where Dennis's hands had gripped it for 20 years. I adjusted the mirrors, checked everything like the journal taught us, started the engine. The Shelby roared to life. Deep rumble I could feel in my chest, the sound of Dennis's work, his patience, his love. I backed out of the garage carefully, Brian's hand on the door handle, nervous but trusting. Drove down Oakwood Drive, windows down, warm air coming through, the engine purring smooth and powerful. Brian laughed. Dad would lose his mind right now, in the best way. He taught me to drive when I was 17, on a stick-shift Ford. I stalled it 6 times, he never got frustrated. This is easier. We drove with no destination, through town, past the hospital where I'd worked, past the high school where Brian played football, just driving. The Shelby responded perfectly. 20 years of restoration paying off in every turn, every shift, every mile. After an hour, I headed home, pulled into the driveway, backed the car into the garage. Perfect fit, like it never left. I turned off the engine, sat in the quiet after. Dad would be so proud of you, Brian said. Of us, I corrected. That evening I made dinner. Brian came down and helped with the vegetables, chopping them the way Dennis used to. The house was quiet but not empty, the garage full again. Dennis's tools on their pegboard, his journal on the workbench, the Shelby in its place. I looked out the window at the garage, thought about Dennis's letter. I'm still protecting you. He was. The investigation he'd built, the stocks he'd left, Tom keeping his promise. Dennis loved me enough to prepare for everything. I wasn't alone. Never was. Never would be. So, that's my story. I'd love to hear what you think. Would you have been able to forgive your child for selling something that precious? Let me know in the comments, and subscribe for more stories like mine.